Have you ever felt invisible in a crowded room? Not the kind of invisible where you're intentionally left out, but a quieter, more profound absence, like you're speaking but no one hears the sound. For some, this isn't a fleeting moment, it's the very atmosphere of their childhood. There's a silent truth about children who grow up feeling unseen. They often become adults who instinctively apologize for their own existence. They enter a room and feel the urgent need to shrink, to take up less space. They find themselves in relationships, constantly wondering if their emotions are an overwhelming burden. And when they achieve something, instead of joy, they feel a quiet dread, waiting for their success to be overlooked, as if being invisible is simply their natural state. This isn't a story about a lack of talent or inherent worth. It's about a foundation of self that was built on silence. Psychologists have a term for this: an internalized neglect schema. It's the brain's learned expectation of being dismissed. When a child's need for connection is met with absence often enough, a dangerous belief takes root, that wanting love, attention, or simple understanding is somehow wrong. They don't just feel sad in a moment, they learn to stop asking altogether. Think of a specific image: a child in a busy place, gently tugging at a parent's sleeve, waiting for a glance, a word, any small sign of recognition. This isn't a dramatic scene of abuse. It's a scene of absence. And in that child's mind, something profound is unfolding. Being ignored doesn't feel like a small inconvenience. It feels like a fracture in the very ground of their being. We often comfort ourselves with the idea that children are resilient, that they bounce back. And they do adapt. But adaptation is not the same as healing. To survive an environment without consistent acknowledgement, a child adapts by hiding their needs, by convincing themselves they don't matter as much as others. They build a survival strategy of invisibility. From the outside, they might just look like a quiet, well-behaved kid. But inside, their nervous system is learning a different lesson. John Bowlby, the pioneer of attachment theory, taught us that secure attachment isn't a luxury, it's a biological necessity. It's formed when a caregiver consistently acknowledges a child's needs, creating a blueprint of trust. When that acknowledgement is missing, a child doesn't just feel momentary disappointment. They internalize a core belief: I am not important. Modern neuroscience confirms this isn't an exaggeration. When a child's bids for connection are repeatedly met with silence, the brain's stress response activates. Cortisol, the stress hormone, is released. Over time, this can rewire the developing brain to anticipate rejection, making anxiety a baseline state and emotional regulation a constant struggle. This is the nature of emotional neglect. Unlike physical neglect, which leaves visible marks, emotional neglect carves out wounds hidden beneath the surface. It's the unanswered questions, the lack of eye contact, the excitement that was met with a blank stare. And these hidden wounds often don't fully reveal themselves until adulthood, when the ignored child tries to build intimacy. An adult who was once that child might find themselves in a pattern of low self-esteem, hesitating to share a thought, convinced no one truly cares. They might fear rejection so deeply that they avoid connection altogether. Or, in a painful twist, they might desperately chase approval, bending over backward to please others, still trying to earn the acknowledgement that was missing decades ago. The ignored child becomes the adult who has learned to ignore themselves. Research from institutions like the National Institute of Mental Health backs this up, showing strong correlations between childhood emotional neglect and adult anxiety, depression, and difficulty forming close relationships. A study from Harvard Center on the Developing Child even points out that consistent acknowledgement strengthens neural pathways for resilience, while neglect weakens them. Acknowledgement, in short, is a developmental necessity. The coping mechanisms developed by ignored children can often look like strengths. Some become fiercely independent, learning to rely on no one. Others become high achievers, striving to finally earn the recognition they crave. Some become expert peacekeepers, keeping the peace to maintain a fragile sense of connection. But beneath these masks is often profound exhaustion. The independent adult struggles to trust. The high achiever becomes a perfectionist who is never satisfied. The peacekeeper becomes a people pleaser who can't say no. But here is the most important truth: the human brain is not fixed. It possesses a quality called neuroplasticity. It can rewire itself based on new experiences. Healing is possible, and it begins not with perfection, but with recognition. It begins with the simple, powerful act of turning towards yourself and saying, "What happened to me mattered. My needs were real." For the ignored child who grew up, the journey of healing is about bringing their need to be seen back into the light. It's about giving yourself the acknowledgement you didn't receive. It can be as practical as pausing to celebrate your own wins, saying your feelings out loud even if only to yourself, or daring to believe that what you think and feel matters. Every time you speak up and are heard, your brain registers safety. Every time you set a boundary and it's respected, your nervous system learns a new truth, that you are worthy of respect. The story of the ignored child is undeniably a story of pain, but it is also a story of extraordinary resilience. It's the story of how silence can create deep wounds, but also how breaking that silence can forge profound wisdom. In the end, the child who was ignored often becomes the adult who refuses to ignore others. They develop a heightened sensitivity to the pain of being unseen. They become the friend who listens deeply, the partner who strives to truly understand. So if you were that child, if you ever sat in your room waiting to be noticed, if you ever felt your emotions were too heavy for anyone to carry, your presence mattered then and it matters now. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about learning to see yourself not through the eyes of neglect, but through the eyes of compassion. And in that brave, messy, and imperfect journey, you discover something profound. You were never truly invisible. You were simply waiting to be seen, first by yourself,